it says that I'm live on YouTube now, but it shows that I'm live. Now it says excellent, but there's no picture there. What the heck is wrong? Okay, now it's working. For whatever reason, it wasn't working for a few minutes. Sorry about that. So everybody on YouTube, the show started at the normal time. I hit go live on YouTube, and for some reason, it didn't start. But now it looks like it did. Okay, so anyways, we're going to continue here. So the jury in this case, after about 35 minutes of deliberating, decided that this guy is not guilty, even though he was arrested as he was shining a laser into the eyes of a Secret Service agent who was literally flying Marine One. This is the same rough amount of time that the exact same jurists from the same pool took to find January 6th defendants guilty in virtually every single case. Every single January 6th defendant that went through the D.C. Circuit Court had an average jury deliberation time of around 35 minutes. There is no way we are ever going to bring people to justice in the District of Columbia. We've already recently had an opportunity brought by Chip Roy to defund the D.C. Circuit Court and to take the staff away from the corrupt D.C. judges. But of course, the Senate chose to remove that. The House chose to remove that. And it's over and done with for right now, unless somebody else wants to go ahead and do it. But I have to be really honest with you. I don't see how this current slate of elected representatives, either in the House or the Senate, are going to do anything about it. They appear to be perfectly willing to allow justice to escape them. And I tend to believe that's because they want to make sure that just in case they get caught up in some bullshit, they're not going to have to worry about getting found guilty by a D.C. jury. And they're also probably not going to have to worry about ever having charges filed against them. You know, we got a great U.S. attorney in Jeanine Pirro, but, what pardon my language, but fuck all is a U.S. attorney going to do if you can't bring a case before the court? If you can't get a very clearly guilty person to be found guilty by a pool of jurists who are so blatantly against President Trump and everything that he's trying to do. I mean, they don't like law. They don't like order. They only like things when it attacks their political enemies. So it's very frustrating. And Jacob Winkler was this kid's name. I was pretty pissed off when I saw this earlier today because I thought, okay, throwing a sandwich at an ICE agent. All right, pretty low on the totem pole. But shining a laser light into the eyes of the pilot who is flying Marine One while the president's on board. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, how can you not find that person guilty? Anyways, I need to say thank you to Chafe BM. Is that right? Chafe DBM. Click on your avatar in the top right of the Rumble website. Choose account settings. Then on the left side under creator dashboard, click on channels. Under there, you will see emotes. Ooh, you are a scholar and a gentleman. Okay, so I am here. Let me go to account settings. And where is channels? Emotes. All right, let me see. You guys are about to get a real treat. I'm about to put Fat JD Vance in there. And it's P8. No, it is FAT. Fat JD. Okay. Oh, it can't exceed 1 megabyte. I have to squish it. That is really annoying. Okay. Well, I have to find some way to squish down this GIF before I can get it to work. That is really annoying. All right. Well, we'll come back to this at some point in the near future. All right. Now, despite all that, President Trump has had a banger of a day. Again, his anniversary for his being sworn in for Trump 2.0. Earlier today, he posted on Truth Social this Twitter post from the Skiff. Dominion voting machines allegedly switched a staggering 435,000 votes from Donald Trump to Joe Biden in the 2020 election with a combination of tweaked algorithms in the software, direct remote access to the machines, and adjudication live on site or from a remote location. Algorithmic anomalies possibly embedded in the software led to systematic vote flipping. Detailed charts and graphs show vote spikes and drops that defy typical patterns, with specific examples from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia. Batches of votes appeared to shift from one candidate to another, always favoring the Democrats and Joe Biden, totaling the claimed 435,000 across multiple jurisdictions. Some were even caught on live TV where Trump would lose the exact amount of vote totals that Biden would gain at the same time. Now, for those of us who were there on election night and those of us who have been paying attention for the last several years, none of this is news, right? But what's newsworthy about it is the fact that President Trump is sharing it on his Truth Social. President Trump has been hitting the idea of election fraud very hard in the recent last couple of weeks. Basically, since he came back, he's been talking about it, but he's been saying a lot about it very recently. And I think that that is on purpose. I believe that in 2026, we are finally going to get the truth on a wide scale, publicized, and leading to justice for the people who stole that election in 2020. Okay, so just want to put that out there because I think that President Trump is signaling that this is one of those things that is coming up next on the docket. All right, now, also, because it is President Trump's anniversary of 1 year in office for Trump 2.0, the White House put out a list of 365 wins that the administration has had in the first 365 days. This is great. Lisa has been telling me for like the last couple of months, you need to put together a list of all of the things that President Trump has done that is awesome and that's a big win. And I kind of was hoping that the White House would just do it for me because that would take some time. Obviously, they've got a budget at the White House. We are working on a shoestring here at Red Pill News. So I really appreciate the fact that the White House did this. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to do that on a separate show, maybe like a special thing or something like that. But I did just want to show number 243. Check this out. Stripped. Number 243 of the wins for President Trump's administration. Stripped notorious crackhead and grifter Hunter Biden of his taxpayer-funded Secret Service detail. That is a win if I've ever heard one. They kind of just snuck it in under the radar. It was the only one that I saw that even looked like it was along these lines. But absolutely love it. Love the energy and the sense of humor coming from the White House. Now, in case you guys did not hear, yesterday there was an altercation in the Colorado penitentiary where Tina Peters is being held. Now, the Colorado state government said that Tina Peters was an aggressor in this situation that took place. We're going to watch the video. I'm going to let you make up your own mind. But according to a statement from that was emailed to Denver 7 along with this video, La Vista Correctional Facility does not utilize solitary confinement because apparently it was said that Tina had been moved to solitary confinement after she had been attacked and then defended herself in this sort of closet where she was doing some work. Now, Peters was told that she would be charged with felony assault and locked down completely for 24 to 72 hours. So, La Vista Correctional Facility does not utilize solitary confinement, they say. Conducting an investigation and moving one or more of the involved inmates to different housing areas pending the investigation is standard safety and security procedures for any incarcerated person involved in an incident pending investigation results. Now, they don't say whether or not there were going to be any additional charges that would lengthen Tina Peters' prison stay. I find it highly interesting that this incident happened now, right after her appeal hearing came up very recently, and the judge in that appeal seemed to excoriate the state and the county for the way that they treated Tina Peters, the language that they used, and then using misdemeanor language and then charging her with a felony. The whole thing was a farce. But this security camera footage shows like the end of the altercation, but we can't see actually what's happening inside the closet. But when you see the video, it shows Peters is wheeling this object. It's like something from lunch or from the kitchen or something like that. And then you've got two other inmates who can be seen. There's somebody that's censored in the foreground. A couple of people are walking around. Tina goes into the closet, wheeling the item inside, and then the other inmate approaches, and then she's obscured by the door. Looks like she's maybe holding a spray bottle or something like that. The other person that she was in the fight with was much younger, like 20 years old. Tina Peters is obviously 70 years old. I can't believe they're going to charge a 70-year-old woman with felony assault for this little incident that happened right here. But here, we're going to go watch it right now. So this is Tina right here. She's wheeling this cart back. She's going to put it into the closet. Looks like maybe she's going to have to move that bucket. This woman comes and walks over here, goes around. Maybe she's the one who was mopping, and so she's moving the bucket for Tina. Tina gets the door open and then begins backing in. And then you're going to have this other woman. Not sure if I don't think it's the same woman, but look, she like grabs the thing, and then it looks like maybe she sprays Tina in the face or something like that. And Tina like comes and pushes her, and she's like, get away from me. Get away from me. Totally cool as far as I'm concerned. That woman is not hurt. Okay, doesn't appear to be a problem. Now she looks like maybe she's trying to help Tina. Then Tina leaves, maybe to defuse the situation. But I would not say that there was a fight that happened here. And let's be honest, like, women in prison, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, you got some catty bitches in there. They're going to be starting some shit. All right. And then you got these other two women, they come out and they're like, you know, girl, what's the tea? Tell me what happened. I heard Tina Peters just whooped your ass. So anyways, felony assault requires serious bodily injury to any person by means of a deadly weapon. Are they claiming that Tina Peters' hands are deadly weapons? You also, along with the serious bodily injury with a deadly weapon, you have to have the intent to disfigure another person seriously and permanently. So that means that when you are, I don't know, using a deadly instrument to perhaps beat them about the face and head, you have to be saying like, bitch, I hope you never look good in the mirror ever again, or something like that. You know, but none of that happened. None of that happened. There is nothing that happened to this woman. Like, she was not bleeding. She was not cut. There was, you know, no injuries to her. Well, you know, I mean, I've seen Orange is the New Black. Anyways, I just don't see how this charge sticks. And truthfully, I think that what they're attempting to do is to make Tina look bad while they're about to look like shit as a result of Tina's appeal. And so they can say, okay, well, you know, maybe the trial was improper, but we just got her on felony assault. So we're going to keep her in prison for a little bit longer. And then they can continue to have, you know, crackheads come in there and try to start fights with her. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Are you just supposed to let somebody beat you up? I mean, she had Tina pinned in a closet. I mean, like, how can you not defend yourself? That was the best way that she could defend herself. Just push, get out of my space, go away. Anyways, Tina, again, is a 70-year-old woman, all right? She wasn't about to be hurting anybody. Yeah, total joke. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. And Smot Poker says, good evening, beautiful patriots. Thank you so much, Smot Poker. Appreciate you. All right, now, we're going to talk about fraud. We're going to talk a lot about Minnesota today. I just don't see how we can't, because the big news is on Minnesota. Anyways, from Maine and Steve Robinson at the Maine Wire, a company by the name of 5 Stars Home Healthcare, run by what appears to be yet another Somali immigrant, Mustafa Al-Hamedi. He's 25 years old. Maybe he was born here in the United States, but certainly he's from that same lineage. He lives also in Westbrook Public Housing. His company, 5 Stars Home Healthcare, was caught overbilling Medicaid by 65%. Now, you would normally assume when a person, regardless of their lineage or where they were born in this world, what color their skin is, or any of that stuff, if they get caught defrauding the federal government of the United States, you're going to have charges, you're going to have restitution, but not in Mustafa's instance. He walked away after getting more than $1 million in payment. There was no money that was paid back to the taxpayer, and there was also no criminal charges either. Let's pull up the article from the Maine Wire. It came out yesterday. So this Medicaid-funded home care agency based out of Portland, Maine, was ordered to pay back nearly $400,000 in overbilled Maine care payments in late 2024 because they failed to provide a variety of required documents. And they also had time to do so. They missed the deadline over and over and over again. And then in the subsequent year, 2025, you also have the case that we just mentioned, 5 Stars Home Healthcare. The president, Mustafa Al-Ahmadi, failed to provide documents that would substantiate the hundreds of thousands of dollars in main care benefits that were paid to his company for home-based care. Again, all told, we're talking more than $1 million in 100% taxpayer-funded payments before the Maine Department of Health and Human Services figured out what was going on and then shut off the money pipeline. These payments from Maine Care include $432,384.72 paid out to Al-Ahmadi in 2024, while 5 Stars Home Healthcare was already suspected of billing in the previous years with an error rate of more than 65%. So his agency was administratively dissolved in November 2024, just 2 months before DHS turned off that Maine Care money pipeline in February of 2025. Now, we don't have any record of him paying back any money. There is no record of any criminal charges. There's no record of anything at all. Every time I hear about a case like this, guys, I get so pissed off. Like if I would have known, all I had to do was start a fake company and just billing the federal government, and then that would have solved all my problems. My goodness. I mean, how are these people? I want to know what the educational pipeline for this is. I mean, like, who tells them this is what you do to successfully defraud the government, to get fantastically wealthy, and then get yourself set up like a king in your original African nation if you want to run from the United States? So the one record that we do have is a notice of violation with no evidence of repayment. There's no record of him being investigated. There's no evidence of him being charged with a crime. Belushi, what's up, homie? Good to see you. Thank you for the raid. And the company had a mailing address at Westbrook Point Low Income Tax Credit Housing Complex. It is now defunct, according to the Secretary of State. Now, the story about 5 Stars Home Healthcare, also sometimes known as 5 Star Home Healthcare and 5 Star Home Care, is very common in the DHHS's relaxed attitude towards some agencies that have been caught overbilling taxpayers. I would bet that there is a history of not bringing charges and investigations against people of certain lineage when it comes to cases of fraud like this. And then other people of distinctly different lineage are probably having charges brought against them. Because you can't just let everybody off the hook, right? You've got to have a couple of businesses that end up having to go to prison or being, forced into paying restitution. Artsy Jones says, Zach, just a thought on Tina Peters. If they charge her with federal charges, does that mean Trump can pardon her? It would mean that President Trump could pardon her on the federal charges, but it would not mean that she could be pardoned. Well, he's already pardoned her on the state charges, and the state is not recognizing it. So all it would mean is that if he pardoned her, she wouldn't perhaps necessarily have to serve the time for that. But I don't know. I don't think it would really do any good. The one thing that I'm thinking is going to get Tina Peters out of prison is her appeal right now, because the court hearing from the other day seemed to go spectacularly bad for the prosecution. So over and over again, we have these cases of Somali and immigrant-run businesses who seem to be siphoning off millions upon millions of dollars. And until now, most of them have gotten off. Now, the other day, we spoke about that Somali business center in Maine. It related to the same series of Somali fraud cases taking place in Maine, as in Ohio, as in Minnesota. That we found has been directly linked to EBT fraud. And that is also a huge, huge fraud case. So expect to hear more about that in the future. Now, Illinois is moving to make sure that we're unable to do background checks and to determine just what type of criminal activity people have been involved in if it does not meet a certain threshold. So what J.B. Pritzker has done is signed a new law called the Clean Slate Act. So what this does is it seals the records of nonviolent offenders. And when that happens, it's going to make it difficult for potential employers, for landlords, or, I don't know, say you're a woman and you do a background check on a guy because you're going out on a date and you want to know what kind of person he is. You're not going to be able to find any of that stuff out. Just because somebody doesn't have a violent criminal history doesn't mean that they don't have a dangerous criminal history, like fraud, theft. All kinds of crimes are not going to be violent because they haven't done any physical harm to somebody, but you can still destroy someone's life by taking everything that they own. So Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed this law. It's going to affect an estimated 2.2 million Illinois residents who immediately are going to have their records sealed. And now this is the 13th state to create an automatic records relief process for people who have these types of nonviolent criminal convictions. Pritzker said the Clean Slate Act, passed with bipartisan support and with my signature, will offer the opportunity for Illinois to create an automatic process to seal the criminal records of those convicted of nonviolent crimes. He said this is going to open up opportunities for those re-entering society to live productive, healthy, and stable lives. But as I think everybody here can see, this is going to end up being something that protects criminals and will keep law-abiding citizens in the dark. Now, a lot of people make mistakes, right? But if you're not going to be a criminal in the future, I think you should own that mistake. And this is probably a part of your life that you should talk about. Like, okay, hey, maybe I got in trouble when I was younger. Maybe I did a little time in jail. Maybe I even went to prison. But I got out and I dedicated my life to Christ, and now I'm doing the right thing. And so I want you to know that I am not that type of person anymore. Now these people are just going to be able to pretend like they've never been in trouble before, pretend like they're not a danger to society, even though they may very likely end up doing the same types of nonviolent crimes again in the future. My question then becomes, well, what if somebody does commit one of the same types of violent crimes in the future? Does their record remain sealed? Does it magically become unsealed when they are exposed as like a recidivist, that they're just going to continue committing the same crimes? I don't know. But I think that, there's plenty of landlords out there who don't want to rent from somebody who has a criminal record as long as they're armed. There's somebody out there who, probably doesn't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's got a criminal record or who has a history of doing terrible things. I don't know. So anyways, we're going to skip over to Portland, Oregon now. Last night, it was confirmed that 2 Portland police officers were ambushed. They were shot in northeast Portland, and this is at the exact same time that a big group of Antifa rioters were occupying the ICE facility in South Portland. So I tend to believe that this was an action that was designed to draw any potential police presence away from South Portland and the ICE facility, and then force them into the northern part of the city, which would then give the rioters a better opportunity to commit some type of mayhem and negative just activity right there at the ICE facility. But take a look.
Current scene right now here on the corner of 16th and Multnomah, where agents are now grouping. It has been.
Okay, Joe Surf says, what if a violent crime gets pled down to something lesser? Then it's going to go on your record as that lesser crime. It's the same thing that we've seen with illegal aliens. You'll have illegal aliens who commit a, horrific crime, and then a woke prosecutor will allow them to plead to something much, much lesser, which may be considered a nonviolent crime. And then they end up getting, something that isn't really worth the punishment. They do the same thing with, American criminals as well.
An officer shot near the Lloyd Center in downtown Portland, Oregon. I'm being told this is a very serious situation where you have command centers being set up. I was told by officers that they are not willing to make any comment right now. So we're just going to stay here and and pray that any officer involved in the shooting is okay. Geyer Digital will remain on scene.
All right, so the guy taking this video is Geyer Digital. I guess he's a local reporter there in Portland. I think the ultimate lesson to take here is that if you're on the Portland PD, you are not the friends of Antifa. The fact that you're wearing that badge and just because you're not doing police work when it comes to these people doesn't mean that they're going to give you a pass. You, just like everybody else, are going to get the bullet. Now, here is a series of photos which are believed to be of the suspect who shot those two police officers in Portland last night. He is described as a Caucasian male in his mid-30s. He's got a beard, he's got a baseball cap, and he's got a black jacket and a hooded sweatshirt underneath that black jacket. He's believed to be armed with a knife and a handgun. And if anyone has information on his identity, please call 911. I would imagine he's probably being protected by Antifa in Portland. Let's go ahead and just look real quick. As far as I know, they haven't caught him yet. Portland police shooting suspect. Okay, so no, does not look like they have caught this guy yet. But we do have a statement from the Portland police. So what happened is it was definitely an ambush. The police were called to a scene where somebody was apparently being attacked. And then once they arrived, they were immediately opened fire upon.
Shortly after 8 o'clock this evening, officers got a threats with a knife call. After officers arrived on scene, 2 officers were struck by gunfire. The officers were brought to a local hospital where they're in stable condition recovering. The suspect is outstanding right now, so we have the area closed off. It's going to be closed off for a while while our CERT team's here. We continue to do our investigation. We ask that residents stay in place.
Yes, I love watching Kill Tony. I always I'm like, should I say your name or not? Yes, I love Kill Tony. Kill Tony's great. Okay, so as far as I know, as far as I can tell, haven't seen any reports of this guy being caught. I see people saying he looks like the woke farmer that we showed some videos of yesterday. It's not him. There's just a lot of leftists that look like that. There's a lot of normal people who look like that too, but it's definitely a different guy. Now, we're going to skip from there over to Columbus, Ohio. Now, as I said, after Nick Shirley released his report, I was hoping that we were going to start seeing people all over the country beginning to do this, and we have. Now, another big YouTuber is this guy, Tyler Oliveira. He recently just went to a Jewish community. It's a Hasidic Jewish community in New York, which the entire community, like 98% of it, is on welfare in one form or another. And because they are Hasidic Jews, they spend all their time basically praying, and that's it. And then they have like 10, 15 kids. And of course, they all qualify for welfare benefits. And Tyler's point in going there was just to show that, okay, so, you know, it definitely happens among Somalians and Muslims, but it's also happening in other communities as well. It's a really good video, and I'd recommend going to watch it. The main difference between Curious Joel, that is the name of the community. Main difference between the Curious Joel community and the Somali communities is that they're just a little bit friendlier in Curious Joel. And although they didn't all want to talk with Tyler, there were more of them who were willing to talk. And they also did seem to own businesses, haven't gone down the road on SBA loans, but I would imagine they're all probably getting those as well. But here, Tyler goes to Columbus, Ohio, and he's been to Ohio a number of times before. After President Trump said they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats, he went there to see how the migrants were doing with people's dogs and cats, and sure enough, they were definitely eating them. But here he finds the exact same thing that others have found in Ohio, that they have found in Minnesota. You have a bunch of fraudulent daycare companies that are probably stealing a lot of money, just like in Minnesota.
My Because I'm Somali?
I'm trying to get daycare for my kid. I don't know what you're talking about.
Get the fuck off my private property.
Yeah, but isn't this a daycare?
That's me trying to enroll my baby into 40 daycares across Columbus, Ohio that received over $42 million from government programs.
I think anytime you have an insular community that doesn't stray outside of the gene pool, you're going to have a large number of inbred and genetically very similar individuals. It happens in all of them.
Programs designed to feed kids from 2017 to 2025. It turned out they were claiming to feed far more meals than they actually provided. And this little office is the only address that could ever be found. Were these...
Now, we looked at this place before, the Somali Educational Resource Center. Now, this was in another one of those buildings that had just a ton of like home healthcare companies, a bunch of front organizations. Now, you'll notice that they've got some pretty heavy security on this door. You've got a camera, you've got an electronic lock pad that you have to use to get into the office. So this is an electronic lock pad. So you can't just go in there, and you can't just go in there with a key. This is a little bit more security than what you're seeing at these other places. And the Somali Educational Resource Center has taken in a fantastic amount of money. So I've seen people speculating that perhaps the Somali Educational Resource Center may be acting as a cash repository, which would make a lot of sense because you have a lot of money leaving the Ohio area, flying to Minnesota, and then flying on to parts unknown, Dubai, Somalia, many other places.
The address that could ever be found. Were these 40 daycares that received money from this nonprofit legit, or are they shell businesses operating as a front?
Wow, this building is complete trash.
Hi.
Hello. I have a 1-year-old. I wonder if I can get an application.
Yes.
Or like, what's the deal with the boarded up windows?
Well, it's not boarded up. It's
Okay.
tinted because, people are weird.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Definitely tons of kids in there. I'm trying to get some childcare for my son.
You got less than 5 minutes to get off my private property. I'm calling the cops.
I'm trying to get some childcare.
Get the fuck off my private property right now.
Not even a hello, how are you? An empty building with a bunch of trash bags?
So pretty interesting. The first one he goes to, it's a real daycare. The second one he goes to, there's nobody there, and it's full of trash. Now, only after he leaves, people show up, and suddenly there's kids there.
2 minutes of me knocking. Someone came, just dropped off a bunch.
This looks to me to just be a couple of Somali women who had a couple of kids on hand that they could call on to show up.
Kids, and that was that. Next up, Al Shafiki. Let's see if they even say anything. I don't know if anyone's here. The place appears to be fully empty. Hello? Does it look like a daycare? No, it looks like a small prison complex. What are your thoughts on the fraudsters that are out there?
I feel like anybody that's doing that actually be punished for it.
Sunrise Child Care and Learning Center. He brought me in. Brand new interior. Super nice, honestly. Okay, you guys following me. Somali dude following me.
I am not even shaking your hand. I do see that you are reporting here.
What are you talking about? You're a highly reviewed daycare. I'm trying to get some child care for the kid.
If you want it,
Yeah.
you shouldn't come and take a picture.
No, I was knocking. What is
want a
this?
daycare?
What is this? Roof's gonna fall in?
Yes, that's not your damn business.
Why are you doing 24/7 surveillance though?
Let me see your
I'm
ID.
not gonna give you my ID.
Let me see your ID.
You give me your ID.
Where are you from, original?
I was born and raised in America.
You are not.
What are you talking about?
Because I'm Somali?
I'm trying to get daycare for my kid. I don't know what you're talking about.
If there's a problem and he needs to leave, we will make sure he leaves.
Yes, that's the only thing you need.
Have a great day.
Come out here.
I literally can't. You don't understand the First Amendment. I'm on the sidewalk. You're making this worse. Go in there and just help the kids, man, if you're such a good guy. Look at the front gate, man. Would I ever bring my kid here? No. This area is surrounded by trash in the ghetto, basically. There is a playground. Would never bring my child here. I've called the phone number. Nobody answered. Let's see if we can knock on the door. Hey there. Do you guys have like an application or something?
So this is just a small sampling of a much longer video. If you don't follow Tyler Oliveira, he's very funny. I would recommend going and giving him a follow so that you can check out the video. Definitely worth your time. Now, before President Trump left for Davos earlier today, he gave a very long press conference. The man was talking for hours because he was literally going through that list that I mentioned at the very beginning of the show. Now, the first thing he did when he came out to speak to the fake news was to hold up a whole bunch of pictures of convicted murderers, pedophiles, and child rapists that they've been protecting in Minnesota for a very long time. Just think about sanctuary cities and how many different people are victimized during the time that those heinous, disgusting criminals have been protected by people like Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Fry. Now, the other great thing about this is that while President Trump was speaking, this was being broadcast like wall to wall on just about every single television news channel and plenty of them online. So if people were interested, then they would have had the opportunity to get it straight from the horse's mouth, to see what ICE is truly doing in places like Minnesota. I'm going to have to refresh.
People, vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder. These are people that are living, if they're apprehended and either put in.
Tim Walz looks like he's aged about 20 years in the last couple months. Yes, I think that he's under a tremendous amount of stress. He's also looking like he's hollowing out. Now, I kind of thought he was on Ozempic or something like that before, but this kind of stress really wears on people, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just wasn't eating or sleeping. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
Jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't have open border policies of Biden, none of this, all of the things that all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers, they're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, trouble.
Agitators, insurrectionists, the paid protesters, absolutely. Now, it was mentioned, I believe Monday, we mentioned that, all told, over the weekend, 10,000 illegal aliens were arrested and deported. Just last night, DHS arrested 3,000 illegal migrants in Minnesota. 3,000 in one night, you guys. Now, I also want to remind you, remember yesterday they set up these barricades across from the ICE facility, which meant that all of the protesters had to stay on the other side of the street. If they came out in the street, they were automatically arrested. That meant that all of those federal agents that were previously forced to stand outside the ICE facility and guard it, well, they were free to go out into the field and start arresting people. But 3,000 illegals in one night, that's a hell of a number.
DHS announced tonight that they have arrested a total of some 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota, including over the weekend several convicted of crimes such as homicide and sexual assault. Meantime, several dozen protesters remain here.
No, it's not 3,000 over the last 6 weeks because they already announced 10,000 that had been arrested up until this point. That was as of Monday. So this is like another 3,000 in the last couple of days.
The federal building protesting the actions of federal agents, but they are staying behind the newly erected barriers put here by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department.
Today, Junior.
It is a simple and effective so far measure that raises the obvious question: why didn't local law enforcement do this last week? Brett?
Exactly.
Well, because they wanted the ICE agents and the federal officials to be forced to deal with them so that they wouldn't be out there on the street. to be arresting people. Now, here is the scene at the exact same facility as of today. The crowd is much, much smaller. Obviously, throughout the day, people get out of work, they begin showing up, and you have a slightly larger group of people at night. But this has been incredibly successful. And again, it frees up all of those resources so that those federal agents can be out on the streets arresting people, making sure that all of those criminal illegal aliens, the violent rapists and child murderers and the pederasts, those people can be arrested and they can be brought to justice. Now I'm going to show you a crazy video. This is a video posted by the woman in the video. She's actually a candidate for Congress, and she is a state representative in Minnesota, in Burnsville. She's got somebody filming her as she drives around doing the ice watch thing all day. This performative bullshit, whistling and honking.
In the community, being patrollers and observers, just had an interaction with ICE, pulled up alongside my vehicle, rolled down his window with his face mask on, waved at me, and then did this, I see you. They like to play games. We're moving on to check out some other vulnerable community spaces. This is what we can do. Got my whistle. These are what our days look like, friends.
Kayla Berg for Congress. Please do not vote for Kayla Berg, whatever you do. Now, yesterday there was the sit-in at Target. Well, guys, they've taken it up a notch. Listen to this. This is the same Target in Edina, Minnesota. This time, all of these people went and bought bags of salt, and they are returning the salt to Target as a message for Target to not support ICE. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, except for that ICE is melted with salt. Is that what they're going for? It sounds like probably the most retarded act of civil disobedience I could ever imagine. And why Target? I mean, I haven't seen Target come out and give any like explicit approval for ICE or say like we stand with ICE or something like that. I don't know what they expect. This is just retardation.
I want people to see this live video.
Well, they didn't even buy bags. They just bought Morton's ice or salt.
We are at the Target in Edina. We've got to have about 70 people in line here.
70 people with nothing better to do. This is the problem with these people. They are privileged.
Everybody bought salt and they're returning it. Why? Because we are asking that Target step up as a corporation of moral courage in this critical moment in our country. ICE is being leveraging Target's silence. They are abducting Target employees. They are staging in Target parking lots. They are going into Target stores and using it as propaganda opportunities. We are asking Target, whose whole brand has been built on serving the communities in which they are, to step up, speak out, use the corporate, because we know that's the only thing.
Okay, I'm just going to tell this woman right now, whatever Target says, ICE does not care. They don't care what Target is going to say about them. Now, Stephen Miller speaking out, and this is highly relevant given the news that we just got today. Stephen Miller just said that this fraud operation in Minnesota is not the Somali fraud operation. It is the Ilhan Omar operation.
Believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes. And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history. The total bill, the total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme. And we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, and this is a significant undercount, by the way, 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare. But that's likely a significant undercount of just how much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing on this country.
So he goes on to say, we believe the Ilhan Omar operation is the single largest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud America has ever seen. So, actually, before we watch this next clip, I have a very quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let me just jump right in here and say that they can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks do not protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing the Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold. It's real gold on the blockchain. And through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IRU. It is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for that physical gold. That is powerful. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using the Rumble wallet. It's peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. Wallet.rumble.com or use that QR code on screen. Thank you very much. Now, President Trump also, in his press conference today, spoke about the level of fraud. Now, he's using a figure that's slightly out of date, but I don't think that we've gotten an updated figure since they began looking at this. But he, too, mentions Ilhan Omar.
Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman. Nobody talks.
Oh, she is a crooked congressman, and all of that fraud seems to be rooted in her community in Minnesota. So, how appropriate that the U.S. House of Representatives has just launched an official investigation into Representative Ilhan Omar. Her net worth, that increased from negative $65,000 to $30 million. And of course, as we all know, her salary is only $174,000.
Woman Ilhan Omar's net worth went up nearly $30 million. The question is how. Here's what we know. Omar's husband, a former political consultant, owns a venture capital firm based in Washington, D.C. and a winery in California. Take a look at these numbers. In 2023, Omar disclosed a maximum of $50,000 in assets at the winery. The next year, Dana, that number increased to $5 million. Meanwhile, her husband's company, Rose Lake Capital, reported a maximum of $1,000 in assets in 2023. The next year, it was $25 million. Despite that, Omar denied being a millionaire earlier this year, posting on X, quote, "I barely have thousands, let alone millions." House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer tells Fox News an investigation is underway, writing, quote, "The committee is working on addressing ethics concerns regarding Representative Omar and her spouse, and we hope to have an update soon." But Omar says she's being targeted.
Ever since I've gotten to Congress, they have been doing these sort of weird ethics investigations. None of them have yielded anything because I have been as transparent as I can be.
Of course, others see it differently. Elon Musk says Omar committed fraud, while President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "She should be in jail or even a worse punishment, sent back to Somalia." Omar authored the Meals Act in 2020, which loosened oversight on food programs during COVID. Federal prosecutors say one of those programs, Feeding Our Future, stole $250 million through fake meal sites. We did reach out to Omar as part of this story, but so far we have not heard back, Dana.
Okay. She's not going to be commenting anytime soon. And obviously they have requested many pieces of personal information related to her and her brother's immigration paperwork. This will be in addition to that. But also, we've gotten word that the FBI has officially served subpoenas as of today to Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Fry. They are not the only ones in Minnesota who got a visit from the FBI today. But let's take a listen.
Here at the I want to get to the breaking news we have just heard. The FBI has apparently just served subpoenas to several officials here in Minneapolis, including members of the office of Governor Tim Walz. We will bring you more information as we get it on those subpoenas. Meantime, the number of protesters out here at the federal building is diminishing.
All right. Now, in relation to those subpoenas, we've got multiple people who are reporting on it. Now, there were 6 grand jury subpoenas that were served to not only Tim Walz, but Jacob Fry, AG Keith Ellison, also the mayors for St. Paul, and then Ramsey and Hennepin County leadership as well. So across the board, everyone who is governing in this ring of Somali fraud is now being brought into this federal criminal investigation. On top of that, Pam Bondi has apparently just landed for a surprise visit in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We don't know what she's doing there, but she has apparently felt that it was important enough that she go and visit directly. So we'll see what happens. Now, getting back to the terrible events that took place in that church over the weekend, the woman who organized that group of people to storm into that church and protest illegally, Nakia, right here, I forgot her last name, she admits in this interview that their intention was to barge into the church. Now, she also lies and says that she and the other protesters were explicitly invited by the pastor. That definitely did not happen. And when they barged in, they were told to leave. So this interview will likely come back to bite her in the ass at some point in the future.
Levy Armstrong helped organize the protest at the Minneapolis church this weekend. Nakima also, by the way, ordained reverend. Okay, so miss her with the what you've been sending me today. These protesters hate Jesus. She's a reverend.
People can be reverends, they can be ordained, and they can be demonic as all get out. I'm just going to say it.
Right, just putting it out there. Former Homeland Security Chief of Washington, D.C., Donnell Harvin, and Trump's former acting director of ICE, Jonathan Fahey. Good to have each and all. Counsel, I'll start with you. Counsel Armstrong, how do you believe that?
Well, Freya, there is a process to get somebody indicted and bring them to justice. You have to have the subpoenas. You have to question them. You have to gather evidence. You have to get discovery. Then you have to bring it before a grand jury. You have to have the indictment filed, and then you have to bring them to court. Unfortunately, we don't live in a system where people can just be rounded up and stood in front of a hole in the ground like Mao Zedong in the Red Revolution and just dispatched in that way. It takes time. It takes time, and it's frustrating. I get it. But this is the system that we are saddled with.
The protesters, were they supposed to go into a place of worship as far as you understand about the video that we're seeing?
Absolutely. We went into...
And that is legal. Why? That's the context.
We were invited into the church. The pastor himself is on video calling it a public gathering, a public church service. So we were invited in, and contrary to your opening statement saying BLM protesters busted in, that's absolutely inaccurate.
I'd say it's pretty accurate. I mean, we saw the videos.
As a matter of fact, most of the people who were a part of the protest were everyday, ordinary citizens who are frustrated with the brutality that we have dealt with at the hands of ICE.
But not a one of them was a member of this parish or this particular denomination. There's this congregation, rather.
And over the weekend, we found out that one of the pastors at the church, David Easterwood, also serves as the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul at the Whipple Federal Building. Now, as an ordained reverend and as an itinerant preacher, I was shocked. I'm someone who believes very firmly in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the foundation of that gospel is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. When you contrast that to the behavior of ICE agents who have done anything but love their neighbor, as a matter of fact, they have killed their neighbor. When Renee Good was killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross on January 7th of 2026, we realize that there is a dichotomy at work that is unsustainable. How can you be both?
The unsustainability comes in the form of people like Renee Nicole Good having a fundamental misunderstanding about what they're legally allowed to do when they believe to be protesting. I'll tell you what you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to drive your car over federal agents. And when you are given a lawful order by federal agents as you are attempting to impede an ICE action or any federal investigation, you must follow it. Because if you don't follow it, then you are likely going to find yourselves on the receiving end of some new brass.
A pastor, as well as someone who unleashes ICE agents upon our community who are inflicting harm day after day after day. That's the real story.
I understand the grievance. I cover that story here every day, Nakima. What I'm saying is, are you open to, one, the pastor saying I did not invite them in, and he says on tape many, many times, I don't want them here. I didn't ask them in. They came in. But that's a question of fact. Let's put it to the side. Are you open to the perspective of people seeing this as proof of what's wrong with your side, as it's called right now, as opposed to, go ahead.
No, I think it's proof of what's right, because what you may not realize is that we walked into the church, sat down, participated in the service, singing the songs.
None of that happened. She is such a liar. Doesn't matter. It's all on video, and I'm totally cool with it. Now, one of those people who walked in and barged in on that service with her happens to be a school board member in St. Paul, Minnesota. This woman right here, her name is Chantel Allen, and she is a snaggletooth such and such. Take a look right here. You can see her on the St. Paul website. She's also got pictures from the video from Don Lemon, which shows her in the background, all right? And then this is her wearing the exact same clothes that she was wearing. She is a clerk at the Colborne admin offices, and then she's also on the St. Paul Public School Board. All right. So local and federal authorities, as we reported yesterday, are currently investigating this entire group of people. Federal agents are eager to learn the names of everyone that was involved. Chantel is also a leader of Black Lives Matter Twin Cities, and as a result of her identity being revealed, she should be getting a visit from FBI in the very near future. In addition to Chantel, we have this man right here who is an employee of the prosecuting attorney's office there in Minnesota. He's also running for state senate, and he also runs a non-governmental organization, a nonprofit called Homes for Homies, where they take Section 8 money and then they steer it to black criminals in the Twin Cities area. Now, his name is Jamel Lundy. Tony Saruga has a write-up on him right here. Jamel Lundy is, as mentioned, a political activist and ostensibly a public servant in Minnesota. He works for the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Mary Moriarty is the attorney there. She is, of course, backed by George Soros and the Open Society Foundation. He participated knowingly in this demonstration, should have known that the disruption of this church service was going to be an overtly illegal act. Lundy has received tens of millions of dollars in subsidies through Section 8. These federal funds are administered to these local public housing agencies like the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. And then through his organization, Homes for Homies, they use that Section 8 money to put criminals up in Section 8 housing. So after they stormed the church, Lundy was seen raising his fist, joining the chants and stating, "Who shut this down? We shut this down." An admission of guilt. There was chaos. We saw it yesterday. Many of the people ended up just fleeing the church service. You had children crying because these radical Antifa paid protesters were screaming in their faces. Each and every one of these people is now facing federal charges. He has previously worked for Minnesota state legislators, congressional offices. He's worked for the teachers union. He's married to a woman by the name of Annika Bowie. She, too, is a member of the St. Paul City Council. Now, Lundy is running as a Democrat for the Minnesota State Senate District 65. That covers a portion of St. Paul. His campaign announcement emphasized fighting against what he called lawless federal actions. Someone ought to tell him about the structure of government that we have here in the United States, targeting communities in the context of recent ICE operations in this area. Homes for Homies Property Management LLC was a company that provides affordable housing options, explicitly targeting individuals with low income, criminal backgrounds, poor credit, people who are not citizens, and people of color. And these business has expanded into real estate development to increase housing supply. So Jamal Lundy appears to be doing pretty good. He has publicly stated that his pricing is set below Section 8 guidelines to make these units more accessible, and he's indicated an openness to renting to residents of all statuses without barriers related to credit or criminal history, including implications for illegal aliens and the like. Now, you can see here Jamal Lundy in Don Lemon's video, and wouldn't you know it, there is that other broad who is on the school board who is right there. And you have, of course, a whole bunch of other people who are in the process of being identified right now. President Trump has responded to the break-in at the church as well. He posted on Truth Social, I just watched the footage of the church raid in Minnesota by the agitators and insurrectionists. These people are professionals. No person acts the way they did. They are highly trained to scream, rant, and rave like lunatics in a certain manner, just like they are doing. They are troublemakers who should be thrown in jail or thrown out of the country. The first to go should be Walls and fake sleazebag Ilhan Omar, who is supposedly worth over $30 million, even though she's never had anything but a government job. Investigate these corrupt politicians and do it now. Do it now, Pam. Do it now. Now, here is DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, and she says very soon you will be seeing mugshots for every single one of these leftist paid agitators who stormed into this church. The government is on top of this right now. It is a top priority. They want to bring charges against every single one of these people. And I would imagine they're going to use both the FACE Act and the Enforcement Act that we talked about yesterday.
Of justice, but I will say that we are working swiftly. We think the American people will have answers soon, and there will be justice, and there will be mugshots. I mean, what the American people saw with these images are shocking. It is ICE hysteria on full display, and I do think it's a window into the souls of a lot of these agitators, that there's a lot of hatred there, when in reality, the men and women on the ground at ICE are risking their own lives to remove murders, to remove rapists. Just this morning, we arrested multiple child rapists off of the streets of Minneapolis. This is major public safety threats that our men and women on the ground are not just enforcing the rule of law, but they're risking their own lives to remove.
Yeah, and we saw there was a clip that went pretty...
So, you know, whether or not you believe that, I do, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. Jixerman 1980, good to see you, buddy. Trump and ICE threaten their do what thou wilt Antichrist agenda. Aleister Crowley would be so proud of the world we live in today. Yes, they absolutely do. These people can do what they wilt, and we will do what we wilt to them, which includes bringing them federal charges and arresting them. Every single one of these people is part of the same network that they've already been mapping. Once they get these, oh, here's something I actually forgot to mention to you guys the other day. The agitators that are being hauled away at these demonstrations, whether they are arrested and charged or not, the FBI is keeping their phones. They have the right to keep their phones for up to 6 months if no charges are filed. If charges are filed, they have to give their phone back within 3 days or something like that, 72 hours. But that gives them the opportunity to clone their phones and also to take a look at everything that's on their phones. And then they can use that to track their movements. They can track their communications. And believe me, they have the power to crack open anybody's phone in the modern age. So, you know, Palantir, and a lot of people have gotten upset about this, but Palantir has been creating a program. They've already delivered it to ICE, which gives the federal officials a sort of mapping program to tell them where these illegal aliens are likely living and, you know, what their charges are. Basically, it's a profile of every single person who's not supposed to be in a given area where they're doing raids. And then they can use this program to go out there and find these people and arrest them. That may be why they've been so successful recently, and they've been arresting far more people than they have in the past, because that program was delivered to the federal government very recently. I would imagine that Palantir is probably going to do something very similar with the paid protesters and agitators that President Trump continues to mention and that we've been drawing attention to for many, many years. Thank you, Jixerman. Thank you to Good Dog 45 as well for the can. Trump won for the cookie. And Filter Dog, who says Alberta's independence movement just exploded and Canada is not ready for what happens next. Thank you for bringing that up. We are going to talk about that in just a moment. All right. Now, yes, Alias says they already have a backdoor access on all newer phones. They've had it for quite a while, but a specific chip is placed in all things with the CPU on the main board that gives backdoor access. Yeah, it's nothing new, but the thing that has hampered the Fed's abilities to open phones in the past has been the encryption that was on Apple phones. All Androids, they've had access to them for a very long time. The access to Apple phones has come rather recently in terms of that stuff. But yes, every single thing that's chipped, like your computer, other forms of communication with simple password access, they can get into it, no problem. All right, now, Nicki Minaj, as we said yesterday, had called out Don Lemon. She called him Don Cocksucking Lemon. And she said that he deserved to go to jail. Don Lemon has replied, and he is calling her homophobic. Don Cocksucking Lemon is disgusting. How dare you? I want that thug in jail. He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up. I don't know what's up with the Chucky stuff. She keeps posting these Chucky memes with all of these pictures. I guess maybe it's because Chucky is I don't know, he's taking victims or something like that, and she's trying to claim a scalp with Don Lemon. Anyways, a lot of people saw that post. She also posted this. Picture of that child that was crying in church because that asshole DeWoke farmer was screaming in his face. And she said, the world is watching. All right, so Lemon fired back and posted this video right here. He seems to be very upset that she said he likes to suck cock, even though we all know he does. I don't know why he'd be upset about that.
So people have been asking me about responding to Nicki Minaj's unhinged, homophobic tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about shit for which you know nothing about. This is...
Nicki Minaj might know a thing or two about that. I don't know.
Out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans. You're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported.
Nicki Minaj is originally from Trinidad, which means that her ancestry is African. Africans came to Trinidad and Tobago and they were used as slaves in the same way they were in other places. But she is a naturalized American citizen. So she's not an undocumented immigrant, an undocumented illegal alien. She's an American. She's, in fact, more American in my eyes than Don Cocksucking Lemon.
Under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who is reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of them is reportedly a pedophile, and you have nerve to talk.
Now, I don't know nothing about that, but I did hear that her husband caught a case for some type of sexual assault many, many years ago. That really doesn't have anything to do with Nicki Minaj per se. However, Don Lemon is attempting to deflect, to say that, oh, well, because you've got some skeletons in the closet of some people you're related to, you shouldn't be able to talk about me and my behavior. That's really, that's a misdirect.
About me and what you think that I do.
You suck cock, Don. Come on. You don't need to lie about it. I mean, what about that one story? Remember when you went up to that straight guy on set, or maybe it was in a bar, and you pinned him against the wall, and then you wiped your fingers on your ball sack, and then you stuffed him under his nose? Remember that? That was a sexual assault. You're talking about people sexually assaulting. Yeah, you actually did that. That was a real thing. So I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
Nicki Minaj, get a life. Stop being a pick-me. You should have put a pick-me doll on that damn tweet instead of a Chucky doll, because you are nothing but a pick-me. And
what does that mean? I've never heard that before.
I choose not to pick you. And so should black people, and so should gay people. Shouldn't buy your music. Clock that.
Well, Nicki Minaj is wildly popular. People love her music. It's not my thing. It's not my thing, but a lot of people like Nicki Minaj's music. All right. Now, Don Lemon is scared, okay, because he is going to be charged. All of those people are going to be charged. And he is currently out doing an interview tour. Here he went on this woman. This woman is insufferable. I hate her. He says that he's not being targeted by the feds because he performed an action that was in violation of the FACE Act or in violation of the Ku Klux Klan Act, the Enforcement Act. It's because he's a gay black man. That's why people are targeting him. I'll tell you what, Don, if you were a straight black man, if you were a straight white man like the woke farmer from yesterday, I'm assuming he's straight. I don't really know. I mean, he could love chugging cock all day, too, for all I know. But that's neither here nor there. But it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you specifically went into that church with the intention of disrupting and traumatizing the people who were in there attempting to worship Christ. And you did a pretty good job. I mean, I'm not going to lie. You were successful in your action, but I think you will also be successful in getting yourself catching a case.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom.
They left England to practice their version of Christianity. They didn't leave England to practice, I don't know, Islam, or to practice, I don't know, some other cultish religion. They left England because they wanted to practice their version of Christianity. They didn't want to be forced to practice the Church of England's version of Christianity.
Religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist.
Well, the victims don't want their faces all over the place. They're not out there doing interviews. The victims have already been traumatized enough. They didn't want to be filmed in that church. They didn't want their kids to be filmed. So, nobody's out there identifying themselves and saying hey, I want to talk about this. Those people want to put this shit behind them. The reason I want to highlight these people is because I want their crimes to be amplified so that it becomes more likely that they get those charges that I've been talking about. You see, the more pressure that is out there and the federal government sees that, the more likely it is they're going to feel the need to bring those charges. The angrier the general public gets about the treatment of those innocent parishioners, the more likely Don Lemon goes to prison. So that's why.
I do understand that. I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
No, you were Don Lemon leading an illegal action inside of a church. That's why. Nobody cares that you're gay or black. Now, another politician in Minnesota, this time transgender rep Lee Fink, has called for ICE protesters to storm additional churches in the state of Minnesota. This dude thinks it's a good idea for these people to continue. Now, I have to be honest, if we want to get these people off the streets, it's a great idea. It's a great idea for them to continue to violate the FACE Act and to violate the KKK Act. So here he posts yesterday, protesters disrupted services at City's Church in St. Paul, where the leader of the local ICE office also serves as a pastor. The protest has caused outrage, promises of retribution and prosecution, and the usual round of upset. Absolutely. But it has me thinking, for the past 24 hours, of the actions of ACT UP and Wham in 1989. I don't know anything about those. Who staged a die-in and protest in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. Did they stage this protest in St. Patrick's Cathedral? Well, first of all, 1989, this is, obviously the KKK Act was in at that time, but the FACE Act had not been passed yet. And I don't know that church service was actually being held at the time. And actually, here is, I don't want to have to go to Lee's Facebook, so we'll go here. An action that similarly brought condemnation during a time when an out-of-control crisis was left to its destruction for far too long. Well, was this something about AIDS or something like that? What was ACT UP and Wham? I've never heard of that. Actions like this, nonviolent resistance in the face of government inaction or oppression, are essential, and they must continue until ICE is out of our state, the administration is out of the White House, and dignity and humanity for all of our neighbors is achieved. Well, hopefully Lee gets himself a visit by the feds as well, because it's openly calling for people to engage in this blatantly illegal behavior. All right, real quickly, before we continue, one more message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, they can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, what you're allowed to say, who you're allowed to support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. And that's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin all in one place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators fast and without interference. This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It is your wallet permanently, yours to protect for your future and for your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, and true financial freedom. Wallet.rumble.com, or use that QR code right there. Now, we've had a couple of Rumble rants come in while I was ranting. So let me say thank you to Sherman 2009. We will have a referendum in October 2006. I have signed the Alberta Independence Referendum form. Let's go, Alberta. Awesome. We will be showing some video of people like you signing that earlier today. Artsy Jones, Zach, did you see the video of a nurse saying horrible things about Caroline Levitt and her baby's childbirth? She needs to be known and lose her license. Look it up if you haven't. Horrible. I did see it, and the reason that I didn't show it is because it was particularly vile. I didn't know she was a nurse. I knew that she was just a woman, suggesting that Caroline Levitt should essentially be ripped stem to stern when she has her baby. And the things that she was describing were just totally disgusting. It does certainly change my mind a little bit knowing that she's a nurse. If anybody can find that and tag me while I'm on the air, I'll go ahead and play it. But it's gross. See Me Too says, best news show on earth. Thank you so much, See Me Too. Appreciate you. And Isle of White Privilege. Don't swipe right. It will be close. Will be close to his cell. Will be to close his cell. Oh, Don's next swipe right will be to close his cell door. All right. Now, Don Lemon also did an interview with Minnesota AG Keith Ellison, and Keith Ellison seems to be fundamentally misinformed about the use of the Enforcement Act and why it might be that the federal government would be using it, or the use of the FACE Act. So in this interview, he essentially bears his ass in relation to what little knowledge he has about the law and how to use it. Now, the FACE Act was passed in 1994, and it prohibits private individuals from physically preventing others from seeking abortions, but it also explicitly prevents others from harassing those who want to worship peacefully. And on October 15th, hold on just a second. That is not part of the article. So Ellison argued that the FACE Act was only designed to safeguard women who are seeking abortions because so-called right-wing crazies had been breaking into reproductive health centers. Then he expressed some level of puzzlement at why the administration would be using it. Now, after what we saw yesterday, I think everybody here would agree that the actions taken by those so-called protesters were designed to disrupt that Christian congregation as they were attempting to worship peacefully in the manner that they chose.
And the FACE Act, by the way, is designed to protect the rights of people seeking their reproductive rights to be protected, and so that people, for a religious reason, cannot just use religion to break into women's reproductive health centers, right? So how they are stretching either of these laws to apply to people who protested in a church over the behavior or the perceived behavior of a religious leader is beyond me.
Well, Keith Ellison, let me just remind you, is the Attorney General, the top law enforcement officer of the state of Minnesota. And I'm not a lawyer, but Keith, all you got to do is read each of these statutes, and you will find that there is ample opportunity within that provision as written to charge Don Lemon and the rest of these people for the crimes that they committed yesterday. Of course, I think Keith Ellison is probably a little nervous about the subpoenas that he received today. He's also nervous about the possibility of the entire protest movement in the state of Minnesota collapsing under the weight of itself. Now, that will be all for Minnesota. Let me say thank you to Sean Joe for the can. I really do appreciate it. And we're going to now step outside of America, and we're going to head out to Davos. Now, as President Trump announced late last week, the formation of the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace has been billed as the next step in the peace process for Gaza, for the creation of a homeland for the Palestinian people. However, it appears that President Trump has much greater plans for the Board of Peace. One of the members of the Board of Peace is the United Arab Emirates, and they put out a public statement acknowledging that President Trump invited them to join the Board of Peace and noting their acceptance. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, has accepted the invitation from the United States to join the Board of Peace, as announced by His Highness, same guy, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. His Highness Sheikh Abdullah emphasized that the UAE's decision reflects the importance of fully implementing President Donald J. Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza, which is critical for the realization of the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. His Highness reaffirmed the UAE's confidence in President Trump's leadership and commitment to global peace, exemplified by the historic Abraham Accords. His Highness reaffirmed the UAE's readiness to contribute actively to the mission of the Board of Peace, supporting greater cooperation, stability, and prosperity for all. Now, also on the Board of Peace, announcing their acceptance, is Russia. That would be Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that they too have received their invitation, and they also have accepted.
I have already said in my introductory remarks, and Dmitry Peskov confirmed that yesterday, that President Putin has received an invitation by President Trump to become a part of the Board of Peace. We have also received annex to that letter, rather lofty document called a charter of the Board of Peace that states that the board will be prepared to deal not only with the Gaza sector, I don't think it's even mentioned there, but it would be tasked with the resolution of conflicts around the world. And naturally, we'd like to clear up the conceptual vision and the practical vision of our American colleagues of this initiative. We're trying to clear these matters up. We'll keep in touch.
So what's notable about that is what Lavrov said right there, is that the Board of Peace will be tasked with bringing resolutions to conflicts around the world. What's interesting to me is that President Trump, as I've been saying, has been dismantling the New World Order. He has been dismantling the globalist cabal system, while at the same time creating the Trump world order. The Board of Peace is part of that vision. It is not a globalist organization designed to ensure the subjugation and the destruction of sovereignty of individual nations, but rather an organization made of sovereign nations, which will be used to ensure peace and tranquility around the world. And if skirmishes do break out, then President Trump can use the Board of Peace and all of these nations coming together under his wise leadership and history at deal making, and we can ensure that peace will reign supreme going into the distant future. Now, also announcing their participation in the Board of Peace is China. China has also received the United States invitation, their foreign ministry spokesman has said, and they have accepted that invitation as well. Now, Washington has asked various leaders to sit on this board, which will be chaired by President Trump. That includes not only Russian President Vladimir Putin and the President Xi Jinping of China, but also Hungarian Premier Viktor Orban, as well as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. So this is further indicating that this Trump world order is now being brought together so that they can stand against that globalist cabal system. Wounds R Us says the identity of that nurse aforementioned by Artsy Joan is Chandra Petri Shuzarik. She is a nurse. She is why, as a healthcare provider, I no longer frequent the healthcare system. I would not want to have anything to do with that woman either. Thank you very much for that. And Shanjo, thank you very much for the can. Appreciate you. All right. Now, President Trump also apparently invited Emmanuel Macron of France. Emmanuel Macron has apparently said that he will not join the Board of Peace. President Trump had this to say.
Do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the Board of Peace?
Oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costco, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
He's going to be out of office in a few months. Nobody cares about Macron. He has no power as it stands today. But if France wants to be hostile, President Trump will just put a $200 tariff on all of their wines and champagnes. That will crush France because people love champagne from France, I have been told. Now, Vladimir Putin has also spoken out about President Trump's attempts to acquire Greenland. He says it would be a huge achievement that would go down in history. What's particularly interesting about this to me is that publicly, President Trump is saying that we need Greenland because if we don't get Greenland, then Russia or China is going to get it. Sometimes the truth comes where you least expect it. So President Trump is obviously trying to secure the security of the American nation in the Western Hemisphere, and Greenland has been presented as the sort of touchstone for that, the keystone, if you will. It's delicate, and if there was some contention between Russia and the United States, if Russia was attempting to acquire Greenland, then you would think that Russia would not be out there congratulating the United States on getting this. Now, It was reported by RT, the annexation of Greenland by U.S. President Donald Trump would go down in history as a huge achievement. A political risk consultant and lawyer Adriel Costona has told RT. It will be a huge win for Donald Trump because many presidents before saw the strategic importance of Greenland. You go back to, I believe, Andrew Jackson, if I'm remembering that correctly, or maybe it was Andrew Johnson, whoever it was that acquired Alaska. Immediately after we acquired Alaska, they went and had a conversation to see about acquiring Greenland. It didn't happen, but throughout the years, U.S. presidents have attempted to do this. President Trump now is going to be, in my opinion, the one who successfully makes it happen. They wanted to acquire Greenland, but without any successful result. If Trump were to acquire the Arctic island for the U.S., he would succeed in securing the security of North America, where other presidents have failed. Casanta stated that the island is the only key territory the U.S. needs for securing the Western Hemisphere. It gives the primacy also in securing the supply chains of rare earth minerals that are currently being dominated by China, he said. Things like lithium and cobalt. Now, you can also see here that Dmitry Peskov, he works for the Kremlin. This is the official position of the Kremlin. Go, Donnie, go. If you make this happen, then the United States is going to be the most powerful nation on Earth for centuries to come. Now, before President Trump left for the World Economic Forum, this morning he also posted this banger over on Truth Social, which shows a map of the United States. It also includes Canada and Greenland and the entirety of the Caribbean and Venezuela, and all of these countries have an American flag on them. It's the idea that the United States controls and owns all of this land right here. That is a total barrier coming from the Atlantic side. The United States owning all of this, and all of these people, it's the leaders of Europe, and then I believe Carney should be in here somewhere. Maybe it's just the leaders of Europe. Because we've definitely got all of the people who had joined President Trump several months ago. But this image is such a ball buster for those people, especially as he makes his way to the World Economic Forum today. Now, what is also interesting is that news about Canadian military. Apparently, they are modeling a U.S. invasion from the south because they expect American forces to potentially invade. And if that was to happen, they would quickly overcome Canada's strategic positions, both on land and on sea. It would happen within a week and possibly in as quickly as 2 days. This is one of the reasons why I think that there is little to no possibility that the United States that Canada would want to get into a war with the United States. Apparently, though, somebody up north is thinking that the United States might just invade, because if we did, we would beat the hell out of them, and there would be nothing that they could do to stop us from coming. That's obviously not going to happen. But what's hilarious to me is that there are people in the Canadian military who are preparing for the possibility that the United States might invade. What's hilarious, too, is that Greenland, the Prime Minister of Greenland, is also telling the people of Greenland, hey, the United States might be invading. And we're not going to invade Greenland either. What President Trump does is he puts all of this public pressure on nations like Denmark, like Greenland, like Canada. It's a bargaining chip. It's the way that President Trump makes deals. He puts the fear of God into people, and he lets them know, like, hey, guess what? You know, if we were to invade you, it would probably look like this. Take a look at Venezuela. Look how easily we waltzed in there, grabbed Maduro, and then just went back and had dinner before the night was over. This is the kind of thing that makes these countries shudder and lose sleep. You look at the situation with NATO as well. We obviously are the only reason that NATO remains in the position that they do. Greenland is supposed to be owned by Denmark, but Denmark has committed atrocities in Greenland. They have not developed Greenland. They subsidize Greenland to the tune of, I don't know, $600 million a year, or maybe more. Due to the fact that the United States has military bases in Greenland and we provide all of the military support there, Denmark does not have like a significant military presence there like the United States does. Denmark agreed in conversations with the United States, with President Trump, to invest $200 million in fortifying the defenses present on the island, and that would make it so that the United States would not have to spend the money updating these bases and keeping our troops safe. Because the only reason that Denmark remains in the hands, that Greenland remains in the hands of Denmark is because the United States is protecting it. They didn't do that. They have invested less than $2 million since promising President Trump to invest $200 million. So not only does Denmark not have not only does the United States not have the ability to depend on the word of Denmark, I don't think Denmark has the money to invest that would be necessary. And that's part of the reason why the European nations were not putting the money into NATO that they were previously supposed to do. That's why the United States was doing all of it. So President Trump is putting all of this pressure on all of these different nations and the leaders of these nations. And then at the end of the day, after they get a significant amount of stress, they lose sleep, he will be able to make the deal that he wants to make. There is a talk going around now about that $700 billion deal and a potential payout of $100,000 per citizen in Greenland to make it easy for them, to make the transition to become an American or to become a vassal state of America, so to speak, to become a territory. Maybe they would become a state. I don't know. We don't know exactly how it would work out. But that's certainly a better deal than what Denmark has given to them. And no forced sterilizations would come along with it. But it's hilarious to me that the Prime Minister of Greenland believes that the United States might militarily invade Greenland when we've already got the military there. We've already got the bases there. If it were to happen, the United States already would have physical possession of Greenland. President Trump also posted this meme earlier today as well, showing him, Marco Rubio, and J.D. Vance planting an American flag on Greenland and a sign that says Greenland, U.S. territory established 2026. At the end of the day, he's trolling. He's trolling as part of his deal-making prowess. Now, here is the Prime Minister of Greenland speaking on this. He says, we would need to continue to work in the right channels. We have not overlooked what is being said. We have said to start to think that we cannot rule out anything when it is said on the other side that he would like to own and take over Greenland. We can't just ignore that. Of course they can't. Of course they can't. So Greenland is forming that task force, which ultimately will become the deal-making body through which the United States, in my opinion, is going to take possession of Greenland. He also said, Trump has said he needs to own Greenland for security reasons and had early on Tuesday posted an AI-generated image of himself planting a U.S. flag on the island. Greenland, with a population of 57,000, is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but has its own government overseeing most aspects of life, bar defense, and foreign policy. Denmark has in recent days deployed more troops in Greenland to boost our Arctic defense. Now, much like when European nations sent troops to Greenland last week, it was a handful. It was like 24. And the same thing has happened again. And guess where these guys are going to be resting up? They're going to be staying on U.S. bases. So there's not much of a threat to the United States military. In a move to shore up security of the territory, Denmark and 7 other NATO countries last week deployed a handful of officers, literally a handful, to the island as part of Operation Arctic Endurance. Denmark's Joint Arctic Command will now expand the military exercises to potentially run year-round, a Greenlandic newspaper reported earlier today. But again, all of this is performative. None of it is going to make a difference in the end. Let's see. Cyrus the Great. Wonder if the elites have bunkers in Greenland. LOL, just a thought. Well, we definitely have bunkers in Greenland. And we've basically been in control of Greenland and all of the construction that has been going on there for a long time. It is possible that they would, but it would have to be like on maybe the far end of the island. But that end of the island is basically a nature preserve that could be used as cover to produce something like that. Admiral Chester My Nuts says, offer each of them the Somali deal. 5 home health care and 4 child care businesses per citizen. Oh, my gosh. All right. Now, also, one of the things that the media has attempted to put out there as a scare tactic to sort of ward off President Trump and the administration from making any of these hard press deals, such as, you know, they basically cried out when President Trump and the administration announced the tariffs. They have said that Europe was going to do things to manipulate the currency, that Europe was going to put tariffs on American goods. None of that happened. All of it has been in the favor of the United States of America. So at Davos, opening remarks from Scott Bessent, he basically said, you know, now it's the 1-year anniversary of President Trump's first year in office. It is also the 250th birthday of the United States of America. The U.S. is doing great. The old order is being dismantled. And a reporter asks Scott Bessent if there is anything that we may fear from Europe.
Just to follow into that, so you do not believe that the EU or the UK have any retaliatory financial instruments or measures in their bag that the United States should be worried about?
No.
Just
no.
To follow into that.
Short answer, quick and to the point. That's why I love Scott Bessent, because the man doesn't play around. He says what he's thinking, and he means what he says. Now, also, coming from that same event where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was speaking, he also spoke about the new national security strategy from the United States of America. Very pragmatic, very level-headed. It makes so much sense, and I think that it will be very familiar to you guys. But this is what he learned when he met with Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Нашей встречи в Эр-Рияде Марко сказал, ну, почти следующее. Я не могу понять.
I thought that there was going to be a translation. There isn't a translation. Okay, this is the translation. So at the start of our meeting in Riyadh back in February of last year, Marco said something like this. I can't quote him word for word, obviously, but I remember the gist very clearly. He said U.S. foreign policy under President Trump is based on national interests and plain common sense. And that means the United States recognizes that other major powers also have national interests too. Not every country on earth, but the key players, America's main counterparts, nations like Russia, China, etc. The national interests of countries like the U.S. and Russia won't always match up. Most of the time, they probably won't. But when they do overlap, it would be a mistake, a serious mistake, not to use that moment to agree on practical and mutually beneficial projects in the economy, on trade, investment, and so on. And then he added, when U.S. and Russian interests don't align, it would be criminal to let that disagreement slide into confrontation, especially a direct, hot confrontation. I told him I completely agree with that logic, and I assume the United States understands the importance of this approach as Marco Rubio described it. It's such a breath of fresh air to have a government that sees things from a realistic and pragmatic point of view, rather than the United States simply going out, leaders saying one thing publicly and then doing another thing privately, creating conflicts, telling other nations that they must do what our government deems they should do, or, you know, accepting decisions by other countries that will be detrimental to the United States of America. It is incredible to hear that what I've always thought we should do in the government is what they're actually doing. Like, hey, if we can get along on things, if we can, like, you know, come to an agreement on things that are mutually beneficial, like, let's do it. But if we disagree, like, we're not going to start a war. That's what's the drama in that, Zach? Well, of course, there is no drama in that. And that's what I appreciate. All of these former governments, they needed that drama to keep people spinning their wheels. Now, instead of the American people having their wheels spun, the globalists are having their wheels spun. And that's what I love more than anything else. Now, also speaking at the World Economic Forum, Secretary Howard Lutnick, his message, Globalism is dead.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Now, he later goes on to say that it makes sense for China to have batteries because they can make them. They don't have oil and gas. Of course, they're going to have electric vehicles because they can make electric vehicles. But for some place like the United States of America, for places in Europe where they don't produce those things, it doesn't make any sense. Now, he goes on to say here that the WEF and Davos need to realize that the United States doing well is good for the rest of the world. You need to stop looking at us as something that you need to manage. You need to stop looking at us as something that must be controlled because we are in control of our own destiny. This is the new way in the world, not just for the United States, but for everyone.
If they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries. Why would you do that? Why would the United States of America, which has oil and natural gas, try to convert to all electricity? China does not have oil and natural gas.
Look at this guy's face. He's like, oh my God. Oh my God. It makes so much sense. He's actually saying something that makes sense. No wonder. No wonder. Because all of the shit that we've been spewing here at the World Economic Forum is totally antithetical to anything that will be good for other nations. It's always been good for them. It's been good for the elites. They've gotten fantastically wealthy. But the new plan implemented by people like Howard Lutnick and President Trump's administration means that the United States will be risen up on its own merits, on its own products, on its own gross domestic product.
Electricity and electric cars make perfect sense to them. That is practical and logical. So the point I want to make, and I want people to think about, is that America First is the job of our government to take care of our workers, to make sure their lives are better for it. And then don't be America alone, right? But be America first. And I would suggest that policy is something for other countries to deeply consider, to take care of their own, and then we will work out wonderful relationships between us. But I want to point out, when America shines, the world shines. Close your eyes and think of a world without America in it. It becomes pretty dark, pretty darn quickly. When America shines, right? And everyone said, oh, you're going to do all these tariffs, you're going to destroy the world. The world's stock markets are up. Which ones of them? All of them.
Powerful. Powerful. We finally have real leadership. We have a government that is of the people, by the people, that is working for us. Now, again, there's a lot people want to see, but this system that we were living under was absolutely effed up, you guys. It was so twisted, and it was sending out feelers and money and taking care of things that we had no business taking care of all around the world. What a novel concept. Every nation for their people. And then, where your interests align, you make a deal. You do what's best for your people. Now, Emmanuel Macron, his speech was very different. For him, and for the rest of the globalists, the world is falling apart. It's Chicken Little. And for some reason, I don't know if he's got a black eye, a new black eye or something, but he showed up wearing these aviator sunglasses. I don't know what that's about. He hasn't explained it, but it's a weird, weird look.
We do believe.
Hold on.
We do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world. But we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. And when we look at the situation, it's clearly a very concerning time, because we are killing the structure where we can fix the situation.
We are killing the structure where we can fix the situation. He's referring to that death of globalism, the sort of the bringing down of the power of those globalist institutions. President Trump has been delegitimizing these institutions since the moment he came into office by showing the power of an America First strategy and how that strategy can be exported to another nation. The changes that President Trump has implemented here and that he has suggested to these other countries have, like, with great effect, helped out everyone. As Howard Lutnick said, everything is doing well. Of course, nothing is perfect yet because we're overcoming a century or more of globalist institutions, sort of just destroying the society of each country from the ground up, destroying the sovereignty, and gradually these globalist people have been handing over the sovereignty of their nations to these institutions, and President Trump has been dismantling them. And to somebody like Emmanuel Macron and the leaders of the European Union, they see what President Trump has done, and they see their institutions being destroyed before their very eyes.
And the common challenges we have. Without collective governance, cooperation gives way to relentless competition. Competition from the United States of America through trade agreements that undermine our export interests, demand maximum concessions, and openly aim to weaken and subordinate Europe.
So why should we be subordinate to Europe instead? The trade negotiations that President Trump is engaged in have been overwhelmingly positive for the United States of America. No longer do we have this massive trade deficit with countries like France or other nations in Europe. Why is it, Emmanuel, that the United States, a nation that is larger than Europe itself, not counting all of them, but, to a large degree, we've got more states, we've got more landmass, we've got more product, we've got more innovation. Is it because Europe is the old money? Because Europe is the blue bloods? Because Europe is the birthplace of the New World Order? No, screw that. We're not going to be subordinate to you and these older nations of Europe. The United States, a nation of rebels, a nation of separatists, a nation of revolutionaries. We are not here to do your bidding. And if anybody is doing anybody else's bidding, Emmanuel, it's going to be you.
With an endless accumulation of new tariffs that are fundamentally unacceptable, even more so when they are used as leverage against territorial sovereignty.
No, territorial sovereignty, talking about Greenland. This entire speech that Emmanuel gave was a direct response to President Trump because President Trump wasn't there yet. Now here, he talks about, again, how the current global order is failing and how he wants a stronger system of global governance. in direct conflict to that America First policy.
We are reaching a time of instability and imbalances, both from the security and defense point of view and the economic point of view. Look at the
security and defense. The United States as being the primary underpinning of NATO. That is no longer the case.
Situation where we are. I mean, a shift towards autocracy against democracy, more violence, more than 60 wars in 2024, an absolute record, even if I understood a few of them were fixed. And
did you hear somebody started laughing when he said that? More wars than ever before. So, okay, so who's starting the wars? It's certainly not the United States of America. The United States of America, under the leadership of President Trump, brought all of those wars to an end. And Emmanuel Macron does not want a spot on the board of peace to sit there with the most powerful nations on planet Earth to help determine a path forward for peace and stability, for sovereignty, for autonomy. No. Emmanuel Macron wants to maintain the globalist New World Order with this system of global governance to allow this sort of top-down control of every nation on Earth, stripping them of their sovereignty. Everything that he says is inverted.
And conflict has become normalized, hybrid, expanding into new domains, space, digital, information, cyber, trade, and so on. It's as well a shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot, and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest, and imperial ambitions are resurfacing.
Not imperial ambitions, but just national security ambitions. And international law subjugates the national law of those sovereign nations. So yes, we are doing away with that. And we are more than happy to say, well, if you've got something that you want to say to us, you better say it out loud. No more of this pussyfooting around, screwing around in the sidelines, in the background, trying to undermine what we are doing here in our own country. Up until this point, Europe has had tremendous power to undermine what's taking place in our nation and in nations around the world. And that's just simply not going to happen anymore.
Obviously, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which will enter into its fourth year next month.
And who is that due to? Europe is purchasing oil from Russia. If they really want to hamper Russia's ability to fight in Europe, then they would stop supporting them through the purchase of their oil. Europe is directly financing the war in Ukraine. And who is it that has continually gotten in the way of the United States bringing Russia and Ukraine to the table and creating a lasting peace framework? Every single time, it is European nations, NATO, and the European Union who have come in and destabilized the peace process, who have propped up Zelensky with money, with weapons, etc.
And conflicts continue in the Middle East and across Africa. This is as well a shift towards a world without effective collective governance, and where multilateralism is weakened by powers that obstruct it or turn away from it, and rules are undermined. And I can multiply the examples of international bodies weakened or left by the key economies.
Yes, that key economy is us. As we all know, President Trump has just recently left all of these international bodies because those international bodies were directly subjugating the sovereignty of the United States of America. Now, what's so funny about this is that Emmanuel Macron is out there speaking about President Trump and making all of these indirect statements about him. And he is part of the group of European nations that are not happy about our attempts to acquire Greenland. Now, as President Trump said, Emmanuel Macron is not going to be in office much longer. He is a globalist, and he has continually held his government together on a shoestring, not really able to do anything in his country. He's also widely despised in France. Most nations don't take him seriously. He doesn't have the power that President Trump has. He's not the imposing presence that President Trump is. And people all around the world are beginning to have less and less trust of those international bodies that Macron seems to be so enamored with. Now, Macron told his cabinet that any violation of a European ally sovereignty would trigger consequences without precedent. Similar to what Denmark said, if the United States was to take some action related to Greenland, then NATO would fall apart. France does not have the military power or the human body numbers that would be required to take on the United States of America. Simply put, they would fold in the same way that Canada would fold in less than a week. Now, President Trump, in response to Emmanuel Macron's statements today, he offered, he put forward a text message that Trump had sent him. It's like Emmanuel Macron is out there speaking big publicly, but then in the background, he's calling President Trump. He's sending him text messages. And President Trump posted this text message from Emmanuel Macron, which clearly shows that Macron is trying to curry the favor of Donald Trump. So you can see here, he posted this late last night. Note from President Emmanuel Macron of France. And the text says, "My friend, we are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. Let us try to build great things. I can set up a G7 meeting after Davos in Paris on Thursday afternoon. I can invite the Ukrainians, the Danish, the Syrians, and the Russians in the margins. Let us have a great dinner together in Paris on Thursday before you go back to the U.S. Emmanuel." So clearly, Emmanuel Macron has two personalities, just like all of these politicians, and President Trump is exposing him. Now, perhaps also giving the Canadian government some anxiety is, as we have seen from several comments in the chat, the independence movement in Alberta. This is something that's been talked about for quite some time, and now it is on the precipice of potentially actually happening. Now, Alberta is not only the most conservative province of Canada, it is also one of the biggest moneymakers because this is where a lot of oil comes from. Now, you can see here in this video, there was a line there. Well, there were many lines all throughout Alberta as citizens were lining up for hours on end to sign the independence petition. And we have at least one member of the audience who is a Canadian patriot, and I would hazard a guess and say that there are probably many more than just one. And if they live in Alberta, likely they signed this petition. But you can see here the line stretches on and on and on. These people cannot wait to show up and sign this petition. Just goes on and on. So that they can vote on independence from Canada. Now, of course, a lot of people are suggesting that perhaps Alberta could become the 51st state. Don't know if that's going to happen or if the United States would simply just become their largest trading partner and support them in their sovereignty. I think that Alberta could survive on its own. It doesn't need to join another country, but it may just be that President Trump wants to make another deal. I fully support the people of Alberta and their independence. Not necessarily interested in taking on a 51st state. If it makes sense, then President Trump would have that conversation. Dang, that is a big line. But I'll tell you this. If it's possible for President Trump to use this in a position to make deals with the government of Canada, he's definitely going to do it. Here we have somebody from Canada. "We will succeed in leaving the failed state of Canada. Other provinces will follow, fracturing Canada, West versus East. It will happen. Albertans are a different breed. We don't fold. We are a force of nature. And Ottawa wanted to F around. Now they find out." A lot of people saying we should swap Minnesota for Alberta. Again, I don't think that that's necessary. I think that we will successfully take back the state of Minnesota. We will fix things. There's a lot of good people that live in Minnesota, and there is a relatively small number of invaders that are currently being weeded out. They are going to be removed. They're going to be prosecuted, and we're going to clean things up there. But the possibility of Alberta becoming a 51st state, I don't know how likely it is, but I think it's highly likely that they will become an independent nation of their own, separate from Canada. Now, I saw people, you are one step closer to joining Alaska. Zach, you are one step closer to joining Alaska. I don't know what you mean. Why am I one step closer to joining Alaska? Oh, you're saying that if we make them to make Alaska part of the continental United States. Okay, I get you. Yeah, so I don't know what is up above Alberta here, and I don't even know if people live in this area. But yeah, if this is successful, then I think you're probably going to see other provinces of Canada saying, hey, why do we need to be part of Canada? I mean, what have they really done for us? And especially if Alberta is successful in their independence, like once they leave, they're able to set up trade deals. The United States becomes a major partner for them. They're able to take care of their business. I mean, from what I understand, they are relatively independent already from Canada. And there's some contention between the Albertan government and the government, Mark Carney's government. But I think that this is going to be a good thing. And yes, you're absolutely right. If they do become the 51st state, then we've just got a little bit more movement to go before this becomes Alaska becomes part of the continental United States. Okay, awesome. Now, for some people, they cannot wait to get out of the United States because they're so afraid of Donald Trump. We've got other places and other peoples who would bend over backwards to come to America. Certainly, over the last several years, we've seen a major influx of migrants, both legal and illegal. Obviously, we are shutting down that pipeline. But then you've got people who are natural-born American citizens who just cannot wait to leave because of their Trump derangement syndrome. There is a group of about 72 Americans who are currently living in a refugee camp in the Netherlands because they were so afraid of what Donald Trump would do. Here is that refugee camp. This is literally, I think this is in like a public park in the Netherlands. And I just can't imagine that people would be so afraid of President Trump and what was happening here that they would choose to go live in what is essentially a homeless encampment, leaving their comfortable lives here in the United States of America to go live in this refugee camp in the Netherlands. So according to Dutch immigration authorities, 76, I stand corrected, U.S. citizens claimed asylum in the country last year, which is a significant increase over those that left in 2024. I guess 9 people left the United States in 2024. Most of those who have left are transgender, or they are parents to transgender children, and they are housed in the queer block of an overcrowded camp in the northern village of Terrapel, The Guardian has reported. You can see here the conditions under which these people are living, and this is absolutely abhorrent. I mean, you've got cover from the rain over your heads, but you don't even have walls on the tents. The camp is reported to resemble a prison with guards at every gate and less than desirable amenities with body fluids smearing the walls. Asylum seekers are permitted to leave the camp, but they must be present for daily bed checks. They are also given a small allowance so they can purchase food and cook meals in the communal kitchen. There's probably crime that is happening in this refugee camp. I would imagine that, people are getting robbed. There's probably sexual assaults. I mean, just like you would expect to see at any sort of homeless encampment or refugee encampment. Many of the American refugees are transgender, and they are seeking asylum because they believe they are the victims of hostility and discrimination in their home states. But even the ultra-liberal Dutch Ministry of Asylum and Migration considers the alleged mistreatment of LGBTQ individuals in the U.S. to not be grounds for refugee status, which is why these people are still living in these tents after all this time. So yeah, this is some true mental illness right here. Now, I would imagine that these people probably found that when they got to the Netherlands, they were expecting to just be given everything, because obviously when refugees came here to the United States, they were essentially given everything that they need. That's not how it works when you go other places. Let's get a little bit closer look here. Residents have complained that the tiny college dorm-like rooms they are provided are covered in graffiti, with some alleging that they suspect body fluids have been smeared on the walls. Many of the American refugees are transgender, and it is not considered to be a reason to be able to be given refugee status. This is Jane Michelle Ark, 47, of San Diego, moved to the Netherlands in April after having been hospitalized for assault. She alleged she was getting punched or pushed or shoved every single week while walking down city streets. I find that difficult to believe. Ash Wild, 40, fled Massachusetts after being physically and verbally attacked in her community. She was dubbed a pedo and a groomer and applied for asylum in the Netherlands last October. Ash, were you a pedo and a groomer? I don't know. Now, this is the place, the village in Terrapel, where these people are living. I don't know how large the accommodations are, but obviously the Netherlands is not particularly big. Immigration officials will assess each asylum application individually and are closely monitoring the situation in the U.S. as it pertains to LGBTQ people. American asylum seekers have complained of being physically assaulted, verbally attacked, forced out of their jobs, and even refused service at local stores and supermarkets due to their gender identities. I don't believe that that's happened to anybody anywhere here in the United States. The only thing that I could see happening would be for people who are obviously not the gender of what they're dressed up as, going into a bathroom and probably being told that they're not welcome there. Or like that person who is supposedly transgender who is masturbating in a Planet Fitness bathroom. That's the kind of stuff that you see. I have never seen somebody go into a store wearing a wig or wearing makeup and being told that they are not allowed to be served at a restaurant or a grocery store. Like, that is just fantasy. Elliot Hefty, 37, a transgender man seeking asylum in the Netherlands, claimed he decided to move after being attacked in the middle of a Kentucky street. He told the world how a man pushed him to the ground during a lunchtime walk and yelled slurs at him as I was left alone bleeding in the middle of the street. He also alleged that he was removed from his client-facing role with Medicaid after Trump assumed office, claiming that brown and visibly queer folks are now only allowed to work in administration roles. That is total bullshit. If that happened, that would be illegal, and this person would have a major civil rights lawsuit against the government of the United States. Never happened. Daily Mail, of course, was not able to independently verify Hefty's allegations, but has contacted Medicaid for comment. The 37-year-old further claimed he was denied service at shops with owners, saying that my tranny money was no good here. Never. That has totally never happened. Actor and visual artist Veronica Clifford Carlos, 28, flew to Amsterdam in June last year to seek asylum after receiving death threats in San Francisco. You're telling me that a tranny could not get respect in San Francisco? Absolutely never happened. San Diego resident Jane Michelle Ark, 47, painted a similar picture, alleging she was getting punched or shoved or pushed every single week while walking city streets. I used to live in San Diego. Believe me, if that's happening, then it's only going to happen from like the homeless or like the illegal aliens that are there. But I don't even believe that it would happen in San Diego. I mean, California is very progressive. Ark moved to the Netherlands in April. This is Veronica Clifford Carlos. That's the one who said that she was getting assaulted on the streets of San Francisco. Not happening. Gail Carter Stewart, who moved her transgender teen Knox to the country from Montana last April, said their asylum application was automatically rejected because America is considered a safe country of origin. All right. Now, Ash Wild fled Massachusetts, and Ash admits that Massachusetts is one of the most liberal states in America and places where officials are working to preserve our identities across the queer spectrum. But she was still physically and verbally attacked in her community, telling The Guardian that she was dubbed a pedo and a groomer. Why is that? People are getting dubbed pedos and groomers because they're pedos and groomers, not for anything else. Wild transitioned to female in 2012 and underwent bottom surgery in Thailand 2 years later. She did want her next passport to declare her a man again. Wait, why? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why go to all the trouble to have your penis cut off and then want to still be a man? I don't know. All right. Anyways, I've got one final thing that I want to play for you. This is about the dangers of the transgender menace in the United States. Okay, so this is a woman who started as a young person, transitioning to a man, and was not told about all of the negative things that would happen to her body as a result of going through the transitioning process. And she wants people to be aware so that kids will be informed, because these gender transition clinics are not giving kids the knowledge that they would need to make an informed healthcare decision.
They told you what was going to happen before you started testosterone. So really, it's your fault. You should have been paying more attention. See, but they didn't, though. They told me the outwardly observable effect that I would immediately notice. Like, that my voice was going to drop. Not that my vocal cords were going to dramatically thicken, and that a lot of women's larynxes aren't big enough to accommodate that thickness, meaning that my voice just always hurts. I snored last night, apparently, because my throat has hurt all day. It also means that I can't scream or raise my voice above a certain volume. I used to do theater. They knew that. That was something very important to me, and I've lost that ability because I can't project my voice anymore. They told me that I might experience vaginal dryness, not that the cells in my gynecological and urological anatomy are highly estrogen dependent, and that depleting them of that estrogen by going on testosterone is almost certainly going to cause them to irreversibly atrophy, which causes a slew of issues, ranging from, yes, vaginal dryness and pain and bleeding upon penetration, to losing the ability to give vaginal birth, to urinary incontinence and pelvic floor dysfunction. I've seen a lot of informed consent packets from these gender clinics, and I have never seen one actually go into detail about what vaginal dryness entails. It's also crazy to me to imply that I, as a 14-year-old 8th grader, or the kids that they do this to are as young as 11, could comprehend the lifelong implications of being incontinent and not being able to have penetrative sex or give birth vaginally. That's not something that a child can consent to.
Horrible, horrible stuff to think that they have put children through this. Essentially a wide-scale experiment just to see how people would react. Absolutely tragic. I feel terrible for that girl, but I also really appreciate the fact that she's speaking out, because not enough people do. I think a lot of people imagine, oh, people detransition, so they just go back to being the way that they were before, but they're never the same. There's all kinds of things that come along with it. All right, before we go through these final gold pills, I need a special message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, if you still have not tried 1775 coffee, I'm going to give you one more shot. Their starter kits are still available, and in that starter kit, you're going to get their bold dark roast. It hits nice and hard like clean left hook. Their smooth medium roast goes down a treat, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee gives you clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of it made from the highest quality beans you can buy. Single origin, small batch, toxin, and mold free. Plus, you're going to get a couple of free goodies, that gold spoon clip, that strong frother, and that black 1775 tumbler. All told, it is $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for $99. This is for all the people who've been watching 1775 blow up and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. And to find out, you need to go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. You can go to that QR code right there or the link that you see in the chat or below the video. Thank you very much once again to the good folks over there at Rumble, and thank you to the good folks over here on Pilled. I need to say thank you to Lou Ann V, who says, sounds like President Trump is making the UN obsolete. That is exactly what he is doing. Can you imagine? I have been waiting for this point in President Trump's second term where the UN becomes a non-functioning organization. We can take back the land, we can take back the building, and then we can kick them right the hell out. We can put President Trump's Board of Peace in the UN's building. No thanks. Oh, Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. No thanks, Joe says, hey, Lisa and Zach, happy Enchilada Tuesday. More and more incriminating information day after day as you describe these far lefties like Waltz, Fry, Lemon, and Ellis, maybe Ilhan Omar, getting a lot less sleep, improper eating, and a great deal of constipation. I hope they all look rough. God bless. God bless you as well. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Thank you to Conserva Chris with a cookie who says, if they did, I'll be smoking brisket for the American soldiers that did. While the Canadian retards I deal with every day screamed they were murdered while being ignored by everyone to cry in a corner. I think that the vast majority of Canadians would probably do nothing at all if the United States invaded. And I also think that the Canadian military would be pretty quickly overwhelmed. I think it's so funny that they're actively considering the possibility of the United States invading Canada. Like, that's so outside of the realm of what might actually happen. But, you know, of course, they have to have the fear of God put in them if President Trump is going to make a deal. Otherwise, they're going to continue to posture and pretend like they have some position of strength, which they don't. But God bless all the Canadian patriots. Braves Piano 29, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog 1, who says Lutnick was warming them up for President Trump. That is my only regret, is that I don't have President Trump at Davos yet. Let me actually see. I don't know if he's spoken yet. No, that was from previously. Okay, so he's not there yet. We'll probably have some clips from President Trump at Davos tomorrow. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says, well, JD knocked up Usha again with their 4th child. Congratulations, JD Vance. Filter Dog 1 says, globalism has failed the West. Globalism has failed the West, and it has failed in general. All right, you guys, I appreciate you all. I'm going to go get some dinner. Good luck. God bless. And I'll see you tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Peace. Oh, yeah, make sure you hit that like button or the red pill, whatever it is. Thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Sending y'all over to Badlands Book Club with Ash and CanCon. They are reading Stolen Elections, Chapter 6.